So I want to bring in a friend of the show here. We have Enia Krivine with the Foundation for Defensive Democracies joining us on the ground in Israel. Thank you so much, as always, for being here with us.
Thanks so much for having me, Josh.
And first, I actually wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the remarks that we heard moments ago coming in from the UN Human Rights Council. Now, they were talking just a bit about the blame essentially put on the U.S. and Israel for really the entire situation here. And it seemed as though it was obviously very slanted there. Want to get your take on those remarks.
So, Josh, I can't let this slide. Did Volker Kirk really just say, give peace a chance? What this guy, the UN, they are so disconnected from reality. Here you have a situation where Iran, the greatest sponsor of terror in the world, has been attacking allies of the United States, NATO bases, European bases throughout the region. They have killed people across the Middle East. They have killed U.S. service members. And here you have this guy standing, I don't know if he was at Turtle Bay in New York or if he may have been in Geneva, saying, give peace a chance. The level of disconnect is just bizarre. But in all seriousness, Josh, they were talking about something that's been, that was a tragedy that happened in Iran. And it looks as though the U.S. may have mistakenly hit a girls' school during one of the attacks. And unfortunately, many schoolgirls died in the attack, if indeed it was the U.S. And there's now an investigation. The U.S., which is an accountable military, will now investigate the instances. But it just highlights how difficult it is, even when you are the world's superpower, even when you have the best technology known to mankind, how difficult it can be sometimes to get these targeting just right. Of course, no one would think that that was an intentional strike. These unfortunate girls were just casualties of war. But it does highlight how difficult this is when you're fighting in a dense urban area to get that targeting just right. It's something that Israel faces, it's something that the U.S. faces, and it's something that will be factored in to warfare going forward.
And we're looking right now over Beirut. As you can see, the smoke is rising. It picked up here in the last several minutes. We know that Israel is conducting these strikes on Iran-backed Hezbollah, the terror group there in Lebanon. They called for evacuations of the southern part of Beirut, and by they, I mean the Israel Defense Forces, just yesterday. Talk a little bit about this mission here, because, again, this is happening simultaneously as we are seeing Israel conduct those strikes alongside the U.S. on Iran.
That's correct. Israel has issued an evacuation notice for a whole suburb of Beirut. That's the capital of Lebanon. The area is called the Dakhia neighborhood, and this is an area that is known to be the stronghold of Hezbollah. And what is so sad about this, Josh, is that this is not the first time or even the second time that the IDF has had to target this neighborhood. Again, this is a terrorist regime in Lebanon, just like the one in Tehran, that is not afraid of suicide. This is a terrorist regime that is not afraid of endangering civilians. This is a terrorist regime whose calculus is to get as many civilians in harm's way as possible. The IDF is going after this Hezbollah stronghold because it understands that it is a threat to Israel. Hezbollah has decided to get into the fight. It's been targeting Israel's northern communities pretty relentlessly for the past couple of days. The IDF has said, if you are a civilian, if you are a non-combatant, get as far away from the Hezbollah strongholds, whether that is in the Bekaa Valley, whether that is in southern Lebanon, or whether that is in the capital, in Beirut. Get away from the weapons, get away from this terrorist organization. This destination will be a target. And what's so sad is that this is not the first round or the second round or the third round with Hezbollah. This is something that was completely predictable, and the outcome during every conflict between the IDF and Hezbollah is exactly the same. And it's a disaster for Lebanon. It's a disaster for the people of Lebanon, just as it is for the innocent people of Iran, who are now experiencing a similar conflict.
What about the fact that we've seen Iran, and talking, of course, about the current regime, they have been attacking several different countries. We're talking about Kuwait, Bahrain, and that's all just this morning. Saudi Arabia. What does that say about where Iran stands right now as the U.S. and Israel continue the strikes on Tehran?
The regime knows very well it can't win a conventional war against the U.S. The U.S. has arguably the most sophisticated, the strongest military in the history of mankind. And here you have Iran, this country that has driven its economy into the doldrums by years of misuse, mismanagement, and spending on its terror proxies across the region. So Iran knows that it can't win a conventional conflict. It can't win a conventional conflict with Israel either, by the way, a much smaller country, a much smaller military, yet very potent. So Iran's strategy is, as it has always been, to lash out in the region, to lash out against U.S. allies, Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and try to create a situation where those countries who do not have the military that the U.S. does, that have different geopolitical calculations, to try and get those countries to go to Trump and say, we need you to back down, President Trump. We can't take this fire, and we insist that you stop this conflict. But that hasn't happened this time, Josh. As you will see, Qatar just did its first air-to-air military operation, and it took down an Iranian jet. Saudi Arabia and the UAE have said that they have the right to defend their sovereignty, and they are also engaging with incoming payloads from Iran. This is not the Middle East of 10 years ago or even 2 years ago, Josh. This is a Middle East that has been rallied around the cause of defeating and opposing the Islamic regime in Tehran. And this is a security framework that the past 2 or 3 administrations have worked on developing, and it is working like clockwork.
What about and you and I have talked a lot about this over the last week since all of this unfolded, but the fact that you have simultaneously the U.S. and Israel conducting these operations, they are working together at this point. We heard Secretary of War Pete Hegseth talk about all of this. What does that say about the relationship? Because I've heard it described as a relationship. I've heard it described as an alliance. So kind of explain that for me from your point of view.
It is a relationship, it is an alliance, it is a special friendship, but more than anything, it is a strategic partnership. These are 2 countries that share many values and share a lot of the same enemies. They have been training together and working together and co-developing, co-researching technologies that now dominate the battlefield. So this partnership, these strikes, the coordination is pretty much seamless, and that's intentional. Not to mention the fact that Israel benefits from purchasing the U.S.'s top technology, its latest generation aircraft. And the U.S. and Israel have a special relationship where while the Israelis fly the aircraft, they're sending all that data back to the U.S. to process it, to understand it, to see how their machines are working in the air. And by the way, I mean, if you're one of these countries who are thinking about buying weapons systems, and if there are several non-aligned countries that aren't necessarily part of the Western alliance, but aren't necessarily aligned with the axis of aggressors, you know, the Irans and the North Koreas and the Russias of the world. If you're one of those countries that are sort of in the middle and you're thinking about buying a weapon system and you're watching this conflict play out with U.S. submarines sinking Iranian ships and U.S. Interceptors hitting Iranian drones and U.S. Fighter jets downing Iranian and Russian-built munitions, I think that you're going to be betting on U.S. military hardware going forward.
And what you're looking at right now is that video that I was talking about earlier, as the U.S. says that it took down and sank this carrier there that was holding drones, missiles, all of that. And you can see the smoke rising in this video released a short time ago by U.S. Central Command. As far as nuclear weapons go and the situation on the ground in Iran, we know back in June of last year, we had the operation there, Midnight Hammer, by the U.S. We've seen Israel conducting strikes. But do we have any idea at this point where the nuclear program stands in Iran right now at this second?
Well, we know that it was seriously damaged in the war of June 2025. That was when Israel launched a preemptive strike against the Iranian nuclear program. And then President Trump opted at the last minute to fly in the B-2 bombers and drop huge bombs on the nuclear programs. Of course, the B-2s can carry the 2,000-pound payloads, which are otherwise known as bunker busters, that can actually get into some of these underground facilities. So we know they were damaged in June, and it seems like, according to what we're reading now, what's been declassified by both the U.S. and Israel, that the Iranians had returned to developing that nuclear weapon. And very interestingly, just yesterday, Israel attacked a nuclear site in Iran, which apparently wasn't even supposed, this was supposed to be a site belonging to a nuclear program that, according to Iran, didn't even exist. So you can see that Israel and the U.S. are taking out these nuclear sites that Iran has purported for years to not even be active.
What are you kind of watching for here as the days progress? We continue this tomorrow, of course. Will mark 1 week since the Operation Epic Fury, of course, going by another name there in Israel. But since all of this began, what are you going to be looking for in the coming days, weeks, and potentially months?
I don't think this operation will last months, Josh. I think that's a pretty fair assumption. I wouldn't call that like a bold assumption. I think that the general consensus is this can't go months, and there's a why to that. So both the U.S., Israel, and then on the other side of the coin, Iran, are fighting with finite resources. Israel's been fighting a war for over 2 years. The U.S. has had Israel's back, has sent its own interceptors into the region, has sent its own missiles into the region. And Iran, of course, has been doing the same. So they're both playing with finite resources. For Iran, the missiles and the drones that they have are ultimately a finite resource. As you mentioned earlier in the show, CENTCOM announced that they have destroyed the vast majority of Iran's launchers, so its launching capability for missiles. But however, you hear different things from different people, and maybe the launchers may be mostly taken out. We don't know how many Shahed drones that Iran has left. We don't know what their other capabilities are, but we know that they've been greatly depleted. What we're not so sure about is where the U.S. and Israel are. Pete Hegseth seems extremely confident. He says, we've got plenty of what we need, and our resolve is ironclad, and we're going to keep going. And in fact, there's going to be more targeting and more B-2 sorties in the coming hours and days. So there's this finite resource of hardware. And then, of course, it's whose resolve can stand longer. But no matter what happens, Josh, my bold prediction is this war will not last beyond a couple weeks, simply because I don't think that Iran has the resources to keep it going any longer than that.
And of course, the reason I say that is because President Trump was asked about it and said it could last 4 to 5 weeks, potentially longer. So that's why I wanted to make sure to mention that. Enia Krivine, thank you so much for being here with us as always. Is there anything we missed, anything that you want to make sure to add before I let you go?
Well, I think that the bottom line, I'll just go back to that Volker Turk interview that we started with, Josh, because it's just, it just begs belief that he has the nerve to get up on a stage and implore the world to give peace a chance, knowing what's going on. But I'll take us. He's asking essentially that everyone goes back to the negotiating table, and we need to de-escalate. And I just want to point out that has been the posture of the U.S. and the world community, the international community, for decades. Let's talk it out. Let's make a deal. let's see if we can bring the Iranians to the table. Let's sanction them and then give them sanction relief. Let's try and bring them back into the community of nations. And it has been an unmitigated disaster. And I'll just take you back, the 3 Ds of the Biden administration: deter, de-escalate, and deconflict. And, you know, I remember Jake Sullivan and other national security leaders from the Biden administration repeating these 3 Ds. And I just remember thinking what a foolish strategy it was. And that if the international community was ever going to get rid of the Iranian nuclear program, it could only come through strength. Peace through strength, not through capitulation, not through deter, de-escalate, and deconflict, and not through the cowardice that the international community has shown for too long.
Enia Krivine over at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. As always, we appreciate you joining the show and helping to break it down.